It's 1 week since the tragic attack on a Mormon church in Michigan. At least 4 people were killed and 8 others hurt during a service in Grand Blanc Township when a gunman rammed a vehicle through the front of the church, started shooting, then set the building on fire. We're now joined by an elder for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Indiana, David Kennard. Thank you for joining us. First, how has this last week been for parishioners?
Well, it was a shock to everyone, and I think that shock goes well beyond members of our faith. Anytime a house of worship is entered and that kind of violence breaks out, it creates an unsteadiness for everyone. So there's been a great deal of shock and mourning as we've worked through the details as they've emerged. And we're working with members of our faith here in support of members of the faith there in Michigan and demonstrating our support through prayers and helping them through this journey.
And how is this being talked about within the church in Indiana?
Well, members of the faith here in Indiana in some cases know people who are impacted by this, but generally when something of this magnitude happens, all members of our faith turn to prayer and our faith in Jesus Christ. Our feelings are, we know that we have hope in Christ both in this life and the life to come. And so that gives some support, some help when times of tragedy like this unfold. Mostly we turn to Christ for asking for blessings upon those who are directly impacted. That includes those who, of course, their lives have been disrupted and through injury or even death, and the collateral damage for those who are also impacted. But that also includes the lives of those who are part of the family of the perpetrator of these crimes, and we've been praying for them as well.
Wow. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, I talked to a faith leader of a different denomination in Indianapolis who's felt the need to organize active shooter training for his congregation. Now, how has our local church for the Latter-day Saints approached security?
Well, first, we'd like to say that any form of security would have been hard to stop what actually happened there, as a vehicle was rammed through the brick walls of a building, and then all the terrible violence broke out from there. We are conscious of security, but our buildings are open. There's awareness of this risk, and while we don't do active training in this way, we recognize that this is the world we live in. We are very grateful and have prayed also for the first responders who showed up so quickly there and took such decisive action to avoid other expansion of the horrific violence that was playing out there, and the heroic nature of saving other people. And we recognize that that kind of support is necessary in our communities as well, and we're grateful for it.
And I'm sure there's a range of emotions coming out of this tragedy, but whether it's yourself or people you're talking to, does this make you feel less safe in a house of worship?
I wouldn't say specifically in a house of worship. I think there's risk everywhere it is that we go. Of course, it feels when a house of worship, something like this happens in a house of worship, there's a desecration that touches us even more deeply. But as followers of Jesus Christ, we teach and try and follow his example of forgiveness. And it's important for a couple of reasons. One, at least we know that we're all beggars and need forgiveness ourselves in our lives. But two, we know those who hold on to feelings of resentment and revenge, it ruins their lives. It's a canker to their soul. And finally, holding back on forgiveness actually can be passed on generation after generation like a virus. So we focus on those things and feel comfort in the gospel of Jesus Christ and the example of Christ.
All right, that was Elder David Kennard with the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints in Indiana. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.